I'm happy to speak with all of you today on a matter that has concerned many of us over the last several years, and that is concerning the Constitution of India, which, as you know, came into effect on 26th January 1950. And today we are on the 27th of January, so it's exactly 76 years and one day from when the Constitution was first brought into effect. The Constitution is a sort of a roadmap and also a guide map for any country. Most countries in the world, no matter what type of government they have, generally have a constitution. There are two or three notable exceptions, and I'm beginning my talk with the exceptions. Saudi Arabia, Israel, and New Zealand, I don't think have any constitution, but these countries seem to be going on quite well without a constitution. There is a fourth country which is very important in our context, which does not have a constitution, and this is the United Kingdom. So, the relevance of this situation of no constitution in the United Kingdom will come back during the course of my lecture. And the obvious connection here is that we wrote our constitution when we obtained our independence from the United Kingdom. So, for about 100 years prior to that, and for another 100 years prior to that, basically starting with the Battle of Plassey in 1757, India had come indirectly or directly under the rule of the British. And they had a major role to play in the kind of governance that this country had obtained for almost 200 years prior to our independence in 1947. As a side point, there are many in our country who feel that 15th August 1947 should not be called Independence Day because, according to them, we never really got independent on that day, but rather it was a transfer of power. There is an important difference between saying we are independent and saying that there was a transfer of power. And this is not just a semantics difference, but it probably had a part to play in the way in which our present constitution was written and drafted. The influence of the British was already very heavy in our governance systems. So it was not totally unexpected that some features of the British way of governing this country got carried over into the constitution. The problem really arose is that it was not just some features of British governance that carried over, but a very large number of them. And I'll come to this point. Now, when I say transfer of power on 15th August 1947, at that time, undivided India was divided into two dominions. These were India and Pakistan. And Pakistan itself consisted of two parts, West Pakistan and East Pakistan. So the head of the dominion is really the King of England. And therefore, when India changed from being a colony to a dominion, the post of Viceroy strictly means the representative of the king. He's ruling like the king in India. That post of Viceroy was taken away, and a post called Governor General was created. Governor General is the head of the dominion, but still he owed allegiance to the British Crown. For example, today Australia, Canada, and New Zealand are all still dominions. It's important to recognize the difference between dominion and a totally independent country. So the period between 15th August 1947 and 25th January 1950, those were the few years where we had dominion status. With the adoption of our constitution on 26th January 1950, we became a truly independent country. So many people, including me, feel that Republic Day is a far more important day for our country than Independence Day. Now, this is a background. Coming to the point of the writing and the drafting of the Constitution. After the breakdown of the Simla talks in 1946, by November 1946, members were elected to what is called the Constituent Assembly, because the then Viceroy, Lord Wavell, told the Indian leaders that they better get down to writing a constitution for the new country that was going to be formed. In November 1946, it was still not known whether India was going to be partitioned. So the members of the Constituent Assembly, about 400 of them, were actually elected from all parts of undivided India. Now, even by November 46, the All India Muslim League was quite firm that they wanted a separate Pakistan. And there were about 100 members out of these 400 who were elected to the Constituent Assembly who did not really participate in the deliberations of this Constituent Assembly. Most of them were Muslims, but there were also a few Hindus. And they were the ones who eventually went over to Pakistan on 15th August 1947. So, although 400 members were elected, only 300 or so of them actually participated in the debates. So, certain important things were already decided in the months preceding independence. For instance, it was decided that India would be democratic, sovereign, and a republic. Sovereign means that, well, basically not a dominion anymore. We are in control of our own destinies. Democratic means it is ruled by the people. And republic means that the people choose to elect a smaller number to rule on their behalf. So the words democratic and republic mean absolutely different things. Democratic just means rule of the people. See, but in India today, we are 1.4 billion people. You can't have 1.4 billion ruling. So we elect a few people. These are our members of parliament and members of the assembly and all. So they rule for us, they rule on our behalf. So that's why we are a republic. Many countries in the world are functioning democracies and also republics. They work like us. You can also have dictatorships that are republics. For example, the People's Republic of China. The rulers are a small group, but the country is hardly what can be called democratic. So please bear in mind that democracy and republic, they don't always have to be the same, although in many cases they are the same. So anyway, certain important things about how the future India was going to be was already decided in the months preceding partition. By about February or March, I think, Lord Mountbatten came to India as the last viceroy, and he advanced the onset of independence. He pushed it forward by 1 year. The British were supposed to go in 1948, but he said, no, we're going to leave in 47 itself. And by about June or so, when the final decision of partition was taken, 15th August was decided as the day when the transfer of power would take place. After that time, the Constituent Assembly became a lot more active, and they started thinking about the various ways in which India could be governed. So these discussions went on through much of 1947 after independence with about 300 members. And the discussions also continued slightly into 1948. Around 1948, based on the discussions that were going on so far, a small drafting committee for the constitution was set up, headed by B.R. Ambedkar and 7 other members, including prominent lawyers like Alladi Krishnaswamy Iyer. Now, the drafting of the constitution took almost 1 year. Almost the whole of 1948, they were involved in drafting the constitution. Towards the end of 1948, the actual debates began, when article by article, the assembly discussed all the articles written by the drafting committee. Now here, I must set the record straight. The chairman of the Constituent Assembly was Rajendra Prasad, And as the chairman, he is the person who used to put the articles for debate on the floor. Ambedkar was the chairman of the drafting committee. And it is believed that this 8-member committee took a considerable amount of help from an ICS officer called B.N. Rao, who had drafted similar documents for the British in 1946. B.N. Rao was actually asked to draft a constitution by the British for an undivided India, and that document appeared in the Simla discussions and then which flopped eventually. So B.N. Rao was a civilian who had much experience in writing all these things. And it is believed that he is the person who actually did the major job in drafting. It is no wonder then that it is said that the Constitution of India bears a considerable relationship to earlier British documents. Mostly the Government of India Act 1935, which was the last major political document or act that was passed by the British Parliament as regards India. So today we have about slightly under 400 articles in the Constitution. It's a matter of record that almost two-thirds of these articles are direct copy-paste from the Government of India Act 1935. And considering that B.N. Rao was the person who wrote most of these things, it's hardly a surprise. The Government of India Act 1935 was a document that was prepared by the British at a time when they really did not feel that they would be leaving India anytime soon. It is a document that reflects the kinds of governance that a colonial power would employ in dealing with a subject people. So, if you take an article like this and start doing cut and paste, there is a valid criticism today that the Constitution of India is mostly a document that describes how a ruling power will rule over a subject people. And to take a little bit of poetic license, what has happened in India over the last 75 years is that effectively the ruling power in India today is the executive branch of the government. And by the executive branch, we mean the Prime Minister, the other ministers, and the civilian bureaucrats. Over the years, the importance of the other wings of the government. All democracies generally have three wings of government: the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. What has happened because of our over reliance on this Government of India Act 1935? India today, according to this constitution of ours, is largely ruled by the executive wing of the government. In many cases, the legislature, although it is supposed to be making the laws and so on, has become subservient to the executive. Again, for a simple reason, because there is some overlap between the executive and the legislature in India, as it is in the United Kingdom, where they have an unwritten constitution. Now, what do I mean by this? In the UK, and we have followed their example, to become a minister or a prime minister, you must first get elected to the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha. Mostly the Lok Sabha. So you get elected into the legislature. The majority party in the legislature elects its leader, who then becomes the prime minister. So the prime minister and his cabinet are both parts of the legislature and the executive. They make the laws and they also execute the laws. So one small group of legis, legislators are given extraordinary powers. These are the prime minister and his cabinet colleagues. The powers of the prime minister of India are actually enormous because the moment you club legislative and executive functions, the person who's making the laws is also executing the laws. And many feel that too much power is concentrated in the hands of the prime minister in our present system. As for the judiciary, it's there. But again, as in the UK, the powers of the judiciary are somewhat curtailed. In the end, it is the executive that generally wins out. Important example of the executive becoming quite powerful happened during the time of the emergency in Mrs. Gandhi. And it is partly in reaction to that that the judiciary started exerting itself. And there was a famous case called the Keshavananda Bharati case, where the judiciary defined what is called basic structure of the constitution. To discuss this a little bit further, you are advised to read some books on how the constitution developed. And in particular, since I am giving this podcast, I can refer you to my book, Bharat India 2.0, that was published in 2022 and which was referred to in my introduction. The title of the book again is Bharat India 2.0. So you can buy that book if you haven't got a copy already. It will give you all these developments somewhat clearly. Now, coming down a bit further, we can ask the question, does this constitution of ours reflect the nature of the people? Finally, any constitution, any good constitution, should reflect the nature of the people who choose to be governed by this constitution. Our constitution begins with the words, we the people. It doesn't start with we the prime minister and his cabinet colleagues. Or it doesn't start with we the judges of the Supreme Court. It does not start with we the members of the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. It starts with we the people. And then it goes on to say that we are a country called India, that is Bharat. And the question now is, what is India? What is Bharat? Are these two the same? I certainly am of the opinion that they are not the same. India is the name that we were given by outsiders. Bharat is the name that we have always given ourselves. You know, people can have two different names. You may have your name and you may have a nickname or some other name, second name. But in the case of India and Bharat, outsiders, foreigners have always called us India. Insiders, we the people, have always called ourselves Bharat. What has happened sadly today is that this constitution of India is not the constitution of Bharat. The people of Bharat do not feel the emotions, moods, and feelings of what is written in that constitution. I'll give you a very simple example. It is well recognized that India is a very religious country. It is one of the most religious countries in the world. Now, if you take Hindus and Muslims, Jains, Sikhs, anybody else, almost 90 to 95% of people who declare themselves as belonging to one of these religions also say that they are religious people. They believe in the religion. Whether you are a Hindu or a Muslim or a Sikh or a Christian, you believe in your religion. So we are highly religious, probably one of the most religious countries in the world. And yet, if you look at the Constitution of India, it's the largest constitution in the world, most number of words. The word God is not mentioned even once. Almost 40 to 50 constitutions of the world invoke the name of God. They say, in the name of God, we, the people of so and so country, are giving ourselves this constitution, something like that. India does not have a mention of the word God in its constitution. There are two major religions in our country, Sanatana Dharma and Islam. Yet, if you look at the national symbol, the national flag, they contain symbols of a religion which is less than 1%, namely Buddhist. I will ask a question. Why is the national symbol and the national flag does not contain Hindu symbols? If 80% of us are Hindus, why do you go to a religion where there is only 1% representation? So there are some certain abnormalities in some of these early decisions. You can go a little bit further. The essence of our country is dharma. Dharma is simply being able to do the right thing. Dharma is about doing the right thing and not doing the wrong thing. Dharma goes above religions. And Dharma pervades the whole universe actually. It's got nothing to do with countries. It is a system of order that has been put in the whole universe that allows all of us to keep doing the right things. So this is what people mean when they say that we Indians believe in Dharma, we are a Dharmic lot. And doing the right thing is often more important for us than doing the correct thing. Right and wrong are different from correct and incorrect. Also, in this kind of a discussion, no one can say what is true and what is false. True and false are also relative. Correct and incorrect are relative because somebody will be defining what is correct and what is incorrect. What is correct for me is incorrect for you. But about what is right and what is wrong, that involves a higher morality. And it involves keen knowledge of where each of you as individuals stands in relation to your society, to your country, to your nation, to the whole world, and to the universe itself. So once you appreciate that, then figuring out what is right is quite easy. And that is what we mean when we say we are a Dharmic country. And this is why many people in this country say that we want to move towards a Hindu Rashtra. Now, the Hindu Rashtra is something where the Dharmic ideals should permeate the functioning of the state, the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. So, all the people who are governing on our behalf in this republic, they should be keenly aware of dharmic principles. In other words, they should always try to do the right thing. This is why it is said that giving a bribe is as bad as receiving a bribe. Because even the person who gives the bribe is being adharmic. Because he's not doing the right thing. By giving a bribe, you are actually encouraging the other person to take that bribe. Suppose everybody said we are not going to give bribes at all. Nobody will take, they won't be able to take a bribe anymore. So you see, these things cut both ways. This Hindu Rashtra term is what many of us are trying to seek today. It is totally different from another word which has been mistakenly conflated with it. And this is Hindu Rajya. Hindu Rajya means that the state will actually be run according to the strictures of Sanatana Dharma, or basically a theocracy. A theocracy is something which nobody wants, and it is not possible in a multi religious country. See what happened in West Pakistan and East Pakistan, which East Pakistan became Bangladesh. Both of those essentially are theocracies. And what happened there? The minority population, namely Hindus in both these countries, were either killed or forced to run away. And so that in Pakistan, the proportion of Hindus fell from about 15% in 47 to 1% today. In Bangladesh, it was about 24% in 47. It has now come to 7%. So in theocracies, people who don't belong to the majority religion are gradually eased out, killed, or sent away somewhere. They don't exist. So no one in India wants a theocracy. But we want a dharmic underpinning of our rules, laws, and regulations. And it's a very, very important distinction which people must make, which is why there is a considerable amount of opinion which says that the Constitution of India cannot be amended any further. We already have 105 amendments. Many of these amendments were made to satisfy some immediate political need. Let me give you a small example. The US Constitution, which is one of the best constitutions in the world, is about 250 years old. It has less than 30 amendments. The Indian Constitution is 75 years old. It already has 105 amendments. So clearly, the original document was either not correct or the situation in the country has changed too much, and merely putting small amendments every couple of years is not going to solve any big problem. One of the biggest problems also is the definition of this word secular. Today, I think we probably do not have the time to go into this term too much. But I can tell you that the word secular had a strictly Christian origin, and it arose in Europe in the Middle Ages, where the church was becoming too important. So this secular concept came in, where the church was supposed to only strictly concern itself with religious matters. And the kings and the emperors would then worry about mundane matters. So there were two groups, which was a religious space and a secular space. So, in a situation where you had a religion like Christianity, this definition makes sense. In India today, this word secular has taken on a debased meaning where the state actually is interfering and actually favoring the minority community, namely the Muslims. So it has now resulted in a crude appeasement of Muslims for the sake of getting votes. It's got nothing to do with the original idea of secularism, where the state strictly stayed away from religious matters. The other problem with this word secular is that governments can be secular, but people cannot be secular. As I said, we are one of the most religious countries in the world. So, how can a religious person treat all religions the same? He or she cannot do that. Because the very definition of being religious means you subscribe to a particular religion. By definition, you cannot be secular. So, the governments can be secular and they should keep away from all religions. Today, it's not happening. Today, the government, over the last 75 years, has actively appeased minority religions, especially Muslims. And they have specifically not done anything in that interest for Hindus. So there is a natural resentment that's building up. And today, divisions are tending to take over this country. The latest incidents in the last 1 week about the reservations for the upper caste as opposed to no reservations for upper caste as opposed to reservations for SC, ST and OBC. It is now reaching a red hot temperature. And all this has happened because of failures in the constitution. Please go to the constitution. Read articles 14, 15, 16, 17. Again, read articles 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. And you will realize immediately what I'm saying about appeasement of Muslims, appeasement of scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, appeasement of OBCs. So the whole constitution today with all its amendments is a far cry from what was written in 1950. Yes, 1950 constitution was not so good because it was a copy paste of the British earlier documents. But what we have done with it is we have taken a bad document and made it much worse. So today I will say that in keeping with the time given to me, I think I've touched on some of the salient points where the constitution needs a serious looking into, and the immediate provocation of course is the reservations for OBC and SC ST, where a whole section of the people, namely the upper caste people, are now being made to feel that they are not part of this country anymore. This is very dangerous. Very, very dangerous because in a diverse country like ours, with so many differences in the people, something somehow should be holding us all together. And this should be the feeling of Bharat. And as I said, the Dharmic underpinning, which will be undoubtedly Sanatani in nature because we are 80%. I cannot say that this 80% is lesser than 1% Buddhist. I cannot say that because then I will be, doing something crazy mathematically. 1% Buddhist cannot be equal to 80% Sanatani. 15% Muslim cannot be equal to 80% Sanatani. This cannot be. In no country in the world did they try crazy experiments like this? So it is time for all of you young people. I am told you are between the age group of 15 to 35 to start thinking for yourselves. First, pick up a copy of the Constitution and start reading it. It's important to know. Tomorrow, if you are prosecuted for something or you're given a fine or you are asked to appear in a court for something, you should know under what rule, under what law you are being called. We don't even know that. We somehow believe that everything was okay and it will go on fine. Now we find ourselves in all sorts of serious trouble. So, suppose you have a computer where the operating system is bad. No matter how good the input is, the output will only be bad. No difference. So, I think I will, keeping in mind the time that I was given to speak, I think I'll stop the formal presentation now, and certain easy books for you to read would be my book on Bharat India 2.0. And the other one was also mentioned, delimitation and states reorganization, because this is another big political problem which has come around in the constitution because of the constitution. And this delimitation and states reorganization book also calls for writing a new constitution altogether. No more amendments. We need a new constituent assembly which has to write a new constitution for Bharat and not for India anymore. So I'll stop my formal presentation here.